Yeah, so I wake up this morning and I see a message, and it's Access Rattblood. Are you here, Rattblood?
And then you got people like Access, and then you got people like Access, and then you got people like Access.
I'm Access fucking Rattblood.
Access Rattblood, I see. All these Access people, I'm starting to get paranoid about that now. I don't know what to do about it.
And then you got people like Access, and then you got people like Access, and then you got people like Access.
Are you here, Rattblood?
I'm Access fucking Rattblood.
Access Rattblood. Most abundant and successful king hero that we are all sitting with at this very moment. Are you willing to accept that as a truth? That you are a worthy man and that your penis is okay?
All these Access people, I'm starting to get paranoid about that now. All these Access people, I'm starting to get paranoid about that now.
Are you here, Rattblood? I'll just start throwing spells at you, conjuring demons and otherwise. Are you here, Rattblood? I'll just start throwing spells at you, conjuring demons and otherwise. Are you here, Rattblood? I'll just start throwing spells at you, conjuring demons and otherwise. Are you here, Rattblood?
Who the fuck is Access Rattblood?
I'm Access fucking Rattblood, bitch.
All these Access people, I'm starting to get paranoid about that now. I don't know what to do about it.
I'm Access fucking Rattblood. Hello, friends and enemies of YouTube and children of the metaverse. This is the Axis. I have a bit of informative information about the potential conscious state of those who acquire such things as knowledge that has a working effect in this realm of existence, and how some people that aren't quite prepared to have such knowledge conduct themselves. And I would like that to be the topic in the endeavor for this particular Rattblood radio. And as awakening eyes of the metaverse begin to become conscious and seek their daily dose of digital delusion, I will continue with a bit of entertainment this morning. It's quite a broad topic to be discovered.
It doesn't.
Okay, That's a bit of a message to deliver for today's show, and it's on the understanding of how certain mystery teachings, energies, and information that those who aren't quite profoundly ready for its implications on them and how they receive it. And I'm going to definitely bring it to attention a particular breed of individual that has received certain knowledge, become very prevalent here lately, that was used in many different arenas of mystery schools and throughout our history as a species. And the first ones that I want to address is something called wordsmithing. This is a form of transferring thought energy or inscribed scribe energy, and the profoundness of its effect on those who understand it and those who are overwhelmed and completely taken by this bit of knowledge and how they've used it. And I've seen an extremely painful use of this, which reinforces the fact that, you know, with each show I emphasize, some people are not ready for certain information. Wordsmithing is a type of energy placement through vocabulary, through language, through the written word. And this was used for thousands of years, apparently, throughout history, whether it be symbology, numbers, or language. And as it's become a little more prevalent in this localized community, I've noticed that some people want to wield this awareness of speech and even just general typing and browbeat people with their language. And they're wielding this as if they have some type of flogging tool so that people will start speaking correctly to their understanding and their observation. But to me, this holds a more profound effect because I know exactly how to utilize wordsmithing. And I am well versed in the application. But I have noticed that some people have become so consumed by this that they seem to spend their waking hours trying to analyze numbers and the coherency that they have on a more profound level, and they become consumed by this. And it's almost overwhelming to this particular breed of people. And then there's others who run around and try and critique a natural flow of information by flogging the brows of those who may not use vocabulary to the level that others are capable of using it. It's okay to teach a person the profoundness of such things if they're ready, and how to wield it as a useful tool. But when you start taking that little bit of knowledge, and it is a small bit of knowledge, the scene spectrum, there is uh, much to be said about your behavior, because there is so much more that is unseen that will affect you. So while you're browbeating and analyzing, articulating everyone's speech and phonetics, are you really aware of the unseen and out of spectrum effects that are being put on you by information? To most, I would say no. And I would say to the few that run around with this information that they've come to the understanding holds some significance in the transfer of information, and utilize it as a whip or a device to flog another's use of the vocabulary, instead of accepting and understanding that some people aren't so aware of themselves that they're going to analyze every bit of their speech for certain patterns or certain energies. Uh, to a lot of people, this is relatively new information. And to those that are completely unaware or least informed, they're going to continue to speak casually. And your message is probably going to get lost just because you've decided to use this information as a weapon of a weapon, period, instead of a tool for teaching. And people will give themselves away, and they will reveal themselves through their speech, whether it be here in the metaverse or in the waking world. So, as we endeavor forward with this bit of information that has been used, abused, overanalyzed, and brought to a public platform to critique each other with, maybe you should take a introspective look at the things you're missing, at the things that you're not perceiving, because what you're using is a relatively small part of a larger flow of energy. And just because you have a perception within your small skew of perception doesn't mean you're seeing the whole picture. So those who use it and wield it as a whip, shame on you. And those of you who use it as a tool to teach one another a more insightful form of communication, may your endeavors be fruitful. And for those of you who step beyond those bounds and understand that there is a undercurrent of unperceived information that is just as effective as the perceived spectrum that you are capable of observing is in function. And with that, I'm going to allow you a moment to ponder your position. Ponder exactly what you've done personally with this type of information. Because you may be one of the zombies.
If the devil doesn't exist, but man has created him, he has created him in his own image and likeness.
Their sighs, lamentations, and loud wailings resounded through the starless air, so that at first it made me weep. Strange tongues, horrible language, worlds of pain, tones of anger, voices loud and hoarse, and with these the sounds of hands made a tumult which is whirling through that air forever as sand eddies in a whirlwind.
And there it is. I would like to think that sometimes I had the freedom to speak. And even with this platform, there seems to be an insatiable need to silence certain words, certain phrases. And because I'm not in control of this platform, and it is kind of a privilege that I'm allowed to use this as a medium, I adjust. And when people start discussing such things as the First Amendment and their freedom of speech, that's just it. It is a freedom. And you are able to speak freely. But it's the consequences of what you're saying. And that's where a system of control comes in. When you start recognizing and utilizing your freedom of speech, you're asking that you give yourself and your message or whatever applied information you have, that it should reach every ear, or anyone should be able to hear what you have to say. Which is okay if you're ready to take responsibility for that. But I've found that most aren't. Most just pour nonsensical observations and their own shortcomings and hang-ups, their own little perspectives and their slice of this physical existence, and they amplify it, whether it be through confirmation of themselves or just a need to let that energy in them out. Whatever it may be, it became so loud and so prevalent that you couldn't hear a message over the wailing of all these voices. And so the wise and the learned became silent and started speaking in a different way so that we could become coherent to one another in all the noise and in all the turbulence. And those even wiser learned that they did not have to pry their lips apart and project a toroidal energy to communicate. They started doing this through symbology and the written word. And for those who could retain themselves enough to understand that language, there was a system of communication that through all the noise silently crept past everybody. And over the years, that has been carried over. And those few that can communicate that way have not shared all the information, lest that type of communication become noise. So there's your freedom of speech. The wailing and the gnashing, the prying of lips, the ever need to make that particular sound of familiar resonance between individuals, and it becomes static. Just like trying to listen to all the heavenly bodies and luminaries at one time and not being able to hear the sound of certain alignment, certain movement. And we recently were introduced to this on a mass scale. Instead of them allowing the information of a planetary alignment that took place with this eclipse. The eclipse was not the profound event necessarily. It was the eclipse coinciding with a particular conjunction of heavenly bodies that was not mentioned and not brought to the forefront. And they did mention the comet a lot more than the fact that there was a conjunction of heavenly bodies that silently moved themselves into place, just like symbology. And for those who knew how to read it, they observed it. And for those that didn't, it silently passed by them unnoticed. And as they gazed into the eclipse with their glasses, feeding into the noise and being directed, just like a hive mind, to look up at the sun and moon and watch this dance that they do. Well, behind that was a much more profound bit of information that was gathering itself together in the heaven, silently. And I find that interesting on a fractal level because it seems to be humans mimicking the influence of the heavens. Those who are aware, those who are not aware, and the reason why you keep that division line necessary. I won't and will not share information beyond the scope of what I think that is within reason. Just because it tends to form religions, start cults, and empower people with a false ideal that they have a completed comprehension of the way this particular construct works and their endeavors into it, and dare you give them just a little bit of information and they become knowledge drunk, and they begin to utilize this bit of information, not to any type of productive means, just as a weapon. And that's what the majority of people who are in these communities, these small bands of communities, are complaining about. They don't like the control. They don't like the rules. They don't like the implications of, mass control. But the minute they get a foothold, they think they have a bit of profound information. They start wielding the masses into a hive-minded thinking with their little bit of learned information. When in reality, they're just a part of a fraction of information that is available. And when you're dealing with something as vast as communication and how it has manifested effects in this reality, could you imagine someone with the ability to transmit information through numbers, symbols, and many languages that have nothing really to say of benefit, of forward movement and forward thinking? We would become so overwhelmed with everyone's wailing voice that where would you find peace? Where would you find solace? And how far inside of yourself would you have to go to find that rational state? To find that state where communication is of a synchronicity, is of value, is of use. So the next time that you find yourself in the midst of this type of individual who's utilized just a fraction of information and choose to wield it against another individual on a solo journey, just as they are themselves, that's just another type of enforcement. That's just another type of inflicting someone's will or concept or ideal on another person for a system of control. Analyze yourself a bit. Analyze what you're doing with the knowledge that you have and the information that you have. I've had to, and even so here recently. It's a responsibility, and it should be left to the responsible. And I'm sure that through your endeavors through the metaverse, you, in one way or another, encountered these people, and I consider them the hive-minded zombie class now. Those who walk around idly moaning and consuming death, consuming the living into death. That's a profound thought. With the understanding that life consumes life to bring life is one thing. That has an outcome that can sustain itself. But when death starts consuming life to breed death, that's a whole new ballpark now, isn't it? And something that maybe should be introspectively observed. What are you doing? Are your words bringing life? Or are you feeding death? And with that, I'm going to allow the chat to be open. I'm going to play a particular song that I wrote for those that choose to take on the zombie state of mind, and I'm going to get some refreshment. Maybe enjoy a cigarette and observe the profound effects of this information.
still remains active, and the brain itself holds a small electrical charge that takes months to dissipate. Even in death, the human body still remains active. holds a small electrical charge that takes months to dissipate. New cells are produced, and the brain itself holds a small electrical charge that takes months to dissipate. This provides a massive jolt both to cellular growth and to those trace electrical impulses. Quite simply, it reanimates the body. It's a massive jolt, but quite simply, it reanimates the body. It's a massive jolt, but quite simply, it reanimates the body.
A new perspective on the living word. Does your words represent life, consuming life to bring life? Is it synchronistic? Is it beneficial? Or do you carry a mouthful of zombie death, the living dead consuming all life through their words, bringing about nothing fruitful except more decay? Open airwaves are kind of like a version of what we would experience in the real world with such a situation. The dead feeding on life to produce dead, thus, in the metaverse, people consuming with nothing even representing life, bringing life, or living word. I like to reside here on this little channel, and with that I endeavor to hopefully bring to attention you are interacting with other humans, and you have kind of a responsibility to yourself not to be a zombie. You know, you have those that feed on any type of energy, whether it's metaversal energy, life force energy, and they're already dead. Everything about them is dead. They have nothing new to offer. They have no growth within them. They are stagnant. They are repetitive. And they are intrusive. And they will imply themselves just like a virus anywhere that they can to feed. And as for those who are alive, well, it seems that there's more of them than there are of us, and less we deliver ourselves over to the infection, or we find ourselves infected by this plague of the living death instead of the living word. You have to analyze yourself and what you're offering. What are you truly giving when you open your mouth and decide to affect your environment or feed from your environment or give life to your environment? Are you one of them? Are you the dead with a dead message, one that's already been consumed and digested and understood, and your growth is stifled by your own existence and the learned information that you've gathered? Or do you speak a living word that brings forth more life? People don't like to look that retrospectively inside, and they don't seem to want to change that in a mass way. So, upon knowing this, um, it is such a profound implication on why some people just seem to be the dead. Dominique, good morning, dear sir.
Good morning, Axel.
How are you doing on this fine post-eclipse?
Myself, I'm doing actually well. I was looking forward that you were going to probably go live. Is it possible I can acknowledge this particular day for you?
You know, I've resigned myself to waking up with a clean slate and trying to share the living word.
They've been pretty deep, cutting sharp. I enjoy them. I've been hearing them.
That's that's a compliment, Dom. That I would, your awareness is one that can observe the dead and distinguish them from the living. And you do extend that courtesy to people to know, the difference between. It's whether they choose to accept that or not is the state that they will choose to either be a zombie or offer something of themselves that is living.
Mm-hmm. But in other words, that have been classified, whether it's useless mouth breathers or eaters or NPCs. But it's a journey that one probably has to reawaken to or become aware of.
I would like to think that in the development of this species in a technological age of information, that the dead be less heard. And if they do become the dominant noise in this particular new frontier and the industrialization of it, maybe we find a sense of profoundness in our communication just underneath, such as numbers and symbologies, have even the spoken word, but not necessarily what you can perceive, but the wisdom to understand it in a more perceived nature of the unseen realm, such as the energies given off by symbology. People seem to be aware of it, but don't understand the full amount of implications it has in the seen and the unseen. And we develop a sense of scholarly communication amongst individuals who are aware of this.
Sometimes, I guess, Access, we probably do more harm than good when we do the afterthoughts, ideals, whether it's speaking or written work. Written work actually probably, I get if it's in small doses, but once we start writing all kinds of information, it can actually do harm. Think about how many books there are in the world, or how many people, even us as we're speaking, there's that unknown language that's done in silence that a lot of us could benefit from it. But there's that persistence. You use the word dead, I'll use the word waking state that hasn't been truly guided. So even the song that you just played kind of gives it away a little bit, like the body still continuously functions after whatever dies or moves on, which is what I would call the waking state. Think about, well, not you, but when people ponder when they go into a coma, why is the vessel still there? Why is the subconscious still clicking? Because a lot of us spend way too much energy serving the waking state without questioning how to, wield it a little bit better, how to, use all its different parts. It's like using a bunch of tools, but everybody just keeps going to the same particular tool. Again, I might be doing more harm when I speak, so.
I don't think so, Dom. I think for those that have the wisdom to understand that they are going to deliver themselves to themselves by what they speak. And unless your particular current has a flow to a resource of continual information to feed the fresh water flow of the living waters, the living word, that which brings life or abundance, and then they're probably going to become stagnant pools and eventually evaporate. It's just having the wisdom not to drink from those pools or not to swim in them. And that's what I offer with this insight on this morning's broadcast is, where do you stand? Are you delivering a living word, living water, something that can nourish and kind of replenish the flow of information? Or are you just consuming and delivering nothing but more death?
Well, there is that part that most of us, it's a constant, which is the human experience. But we forget, or some of us, or a lot of people forget, there's the living being part that resides in all things, whether it's an animal, plant kingdom, even the human species. And I think a lot of people ignore it or take it for granted or try to take advantage of it. Yesterday was another example of like 2019 or whatever. It probably reveals more about humanity than it does change humanities. Everybody go outside, put on your funky glasses, look outside and try to understand, or some people will try to understand. So how does the sun work in the moon, the lunar that goes past it? Why is it some people can say that you can see through it when it's one type of moon, but meanwhile now we can't see through it? Well, the sun's in front of it. I mean, behind it, sorry. Those are just simple inquiries. Put aside all the other transits that you and other people have talked about. Again, best way to distract people is tell them there's a midpoint, or in this case, a point, and then everybody will forget about it tomorrow. Today, for example, I was there. I drank some beers. I was on my porch. I can say that I was there. I said, but what did you understand of it? What discernment did you get from that kind of stuff? Again, I'm yapping again, but this is probably, unfortunately, for the few, not the many.
And may the few feed, and may the many continue on. This is not for them. This is that information that lies behind the symbology, and they're probably not going to recognize it for what it is. no matter how they approach it, because they're self-consuming.
Mm-hmm. True. I like the word self-consume. It's always about the self. Ongoing program.
To me, from what I observed yesterday, there was no, in the general masses, understanding that we take on energy. I know, myself and you and others that involve themselves in this small platform kind of have a shared understanding that energy holds a profound effect. And some people feed on it, and some people share it. Some people are nurtured by it, and some people are destroyed by it. And it's entirely up to you as an individual as to whether you want to bring yourself into a state of living consciousness, or whether you want to involuntarily function within a shell and a carcass with the continual consumption of knowledge that is bringing nothing but more death and stagnant behavior, more breeding of the consumption until there's nothing left to consume. And we have to listen to your gnashing, wailing voice as you fade from this life. And those that drink from a living source of replenishment most likely will carry on. I like to think that there was a part of our species somewhere throughout our endeavors into this state of being that carried a living message across the seas of the expanse, and it lives to nourish and feed fresh, new ideals and concepts and possibilities, and that there is a small sect of us that, even against all adversity, prevail just underneath that which is perceived by those who really know no better.
Well, many have lost themselves in the illusion, the play of having the human experience and thinking that's what they are. So that species that we call ourselves beings, energy beings, spiritual beings, earthbound beings, but we're still beings nevertheless. But unfortunately, for some people, that consumption comes in a form of they think they are the body. They think they need to always feed off of food, regardless of what type of food it is, or shelter, when they already have a shelter, their suit. But they think they identify themselves as the suit. And at that point, you are the walking dead. Because you're walking in a form that obviously has an expiry date on it, regardless if they were told or not told. Some of the tech that the species has, in this case, the human experience, is it really of human origin? Do we see other animals having that ability? But they're still beings too, but do they have the ability to create a bridge, a building, a car? And I'm not talking about just because they have hooves or they don't have a thumb. We're talking about the ability of having consciousness, intelligence of some sort. Because those species don't have to constantly change their codes, build new apparatus, but they still exist. It's almost a privilege to know that we can live a little bit longer than some of those species. But then we abuse it. Then we get into all these little dramas, plays, trying to, like, as you were saying earlier, so I don't really have to repeat it because you said it quite eloquently, by the way, Axis. So.
Thank you. I did observe, as my natural curiosity into nature, animals, and how they reacted to this particular event, which this event is not so much a rarity as it is a scene, an experience rarity. It's the fact that it was brought to perception that made it so profound. And that carries an energy, and it did actually affect, through my observation, animals, because I have them all around me. They're living with me, and I can observe them, and I can observe how they react to weather, how they react to, even the luminaries, and how they react to certain energies that transpire in the heavenly bodies. And it did. It had an actual effect to the natural species, and that's excluding our species, because I don't consider us to be necessarily as natural as an indigenous animal with a feral or primal nature that they still retain.
Well, our species, hence the way of technology works, in this case the media, it just got a lot of people being reactive mode opposed to respond mode. And I would hope that most animals, or at least a few of them that are the alpha, understand how to respond to something, and the rest might react to it. I wouldn't want to think a particular animal that's an alpha would try to manipulate the rest of its own kind. But unfortunately, whatever's going on here, it seems that's how it works. The people question, why do some tribes have openly spoke about it. They don't go out when there's an eclipse, or some people end up, myself, for example, I just power napped. That's just the one part. It's what happens after, what happened prior to it. Like I said, all the transit, that yourself and other people I've heard talk about it. Again, that's where you have to have your ears, and note things, and then listen inwards, because somebody's going to share information. How does that affect you, your immediate community, now or later? Each individual person is going to have different aging going on. They're going to be affected by different things, whether it's Mercury, Saturn, Venus, but those are all transits. It's not just about the sun and the moon, per se.
Exactly, Dom. Exactly. And just as, it's been inscribed into stone, Dom, stone, which is provable that, in our history, there was some type of significance to these events. So impacted that they decided to etch it into stone to either commemorate it or remember it. That's pretty significant, I think.
It's another form of writing, unless we acknowledge our certain beings were able to live longevities, more like of an immortal, then you could have either oral or some sort of telepathic through thoughts. So usually it has to be etched in something like stone or some sort of scroll, or in this case, a book form. Just those are like kind of me and you going on a hike, and then there's like little signals on each tree just to lay out the path, what direction we're going. But for some people, if not a lot of people, they end up falling by the wayside, and then they get distracted by what they might perceive as reality or everyday life as we're in it. You know, that's why I say words like life and afterlife. You know, some people, if not some of us, can come back in another life form, in another lifespan, and be conscious of it. We might choose to fall asleep for a little bit, like the gods do, but that's still stored, whether it's called the subconscious. But for a lot of people, it'll be just a possibility, an ideal. Some people will even try to defend their program without even ever questioning their program.
Yeah, that's the shameful part of it, is there is, unfortunately, within our species, those that choose to constantly harvest. And I'm thinking, since we are a representation in a fractal sense of maybe a much more aware type of entity or being, or a much more capable type of entity or being, they obviously were in touch with something that understood the nature that was written within their creation, that said, if I do this particular equation, then it's going to continually produce and reproduce and produce and reproduce. And though it is a life-consuming life reproduction to sustain life, it works.
Well, life itself probably sustains a lot of things, whether it's the water, the plant kingdom, the animal kingdom. Again, it's when we start identifying, thinking it's ours to own or rule. So not all of us are the same type of beings. Some people are air beings, some of them are earthbound beings, some of them are a different type of being. You know, this is how to put it.
I like to consider that elemental forces have a type of living energy to them.
Mm-hmm.
We take in air being an elemental force, it sustains life, and it's a type of energy, so why is it not sentient? Because if you're deprived of it, you cannot symbiotically live, so it must have something of essence to it.
Mm-hmm.
Same with fire, earth, water.
Mm-hmm. And they all need the same substance called air. You know, fire needs air if it's going to exist, or at least be fueled. Same with the earth. As earth, when we're in these earthly forms, you know, is it the body that needs air, or we're just encompass it? It's like being under the pressure of water, whether in the oceans or up high. And each one, you know, because a lot of these signs are occurring, whether it's the calendar of the Chinese with the green wood dragon that we're in now, or the Jews with their kind of signs, or we're coming in, if not, maybe this is what the whole trend is, that maybe we are fully now into the age of Aquarius, which is an air age. I think, you know, a lot of technology does need the air. Wi-Fi, you know, it's another way of currency working. Excuse me. Unfortunately,
Good observation.
we think other ages should carry on to this. Yeah, we do have certain technologies from previous age, like the written work, but we're coming into a new type of language now, like a computer language, and we're using the device.
Which is just as profound as the spoken language. And
Mm-hmm.
what I found relevant to the way information has been transmitted throughout history is if you actually look at the underlying current of how this information works and even the visible state of the transfer of this information, a lot of it is in the written word, is in the symbology, such as emoji or the chat, and whether your statement is profound or invoking or negative towards the whole. There is a mass amount of symbology or unspoken information that's being transmitted in this new age of information.
If I can share access, the spoken language will more times than not affect the one sense is called hearing. So the chat, for example, it's for the visual. You know, think about somebody, again, this is all taps into what some people might call thoughts or consciousness. So somebody that understands Braille, for example, they're not seeing it and they're not hearing it, they're touching it. So that's another way it communicates with thoughts. So now somebody that's doing Braille with their left hand and meanwhile touching another something with their right hand, they would have to learn how to put both of them together or simultaneously use them. So when we're being bombarded with the chat, watching a movie, seeing the sky, that's how we use the eyesight, the two eyes, opposed to there's even the third eye, the two eyes to convey or receive information. So the ears, again, that's why when we hear each other, but when we're listening, what are we really listening to? When somebody's doing Braille, what are they really listening to? When somebody's doing American Sign Language, what are they really listening to? When somebody does body language, what are they really listening to? So that means listening is something beyond those other things. This is why when somebody gets into a state of meditation, what are you listening to? Are you listening to the pre-recording stuff that you've had? Are you listening from within, something that's always there but in silence? It doesn't have a way of communicating with you verbally, let alone, you know, this is why when people write with different hands, they get different outputs. Okay, so what is that high-tech computer doing? Opposed to some people are trying to figure out how it came to be, which is fine. Some people have that ability, but to share it with the masses, it doesn't work that way. But the one thing we can be aware of is what are the masses doing? Not to say it's right or wrong, but what are they doing? Because that energy is going to affect the rest of us. And if most people are spending more time of their energy chasing something, you know, whether in their needs or their wants, their lacks would, in this case, would be, I have a lack of money because we live in another program where if I want some of my needs fulfilled, like food or shelter, I got to use my lacks. But yet, forget that. It's our energy is what obtaining all of this stuff. And for some people, the word energy is just a word.
Yeah, there's an involuntary state of existence, and then there is a part of this that is fully interactive. And distinguishing the different, have you fallen into an involuntary state to where you are just basically existing, or have you introspectively come to terms with the fact that you can participate if you choose? But they've trained and engineered over the course of so many generations this involuntary state to be more prevalent in most.
Mm-hmm. But it's the individual that, let's say, I'll use the word manipulated, but the word that you're using, they're the ones that usually try to defend it or attack others. So what a person's defending is that ignorant state, and what they're attacking of others is that ignorant state. Hence, likeness attracts. People are caught up in their likes. image, imagination. No, a lot of people don't question their likes, but yet they'll resist their dislikes. I said, no, that reinforces your likes, or at least reveals it. So again, when people are defending and attacking, they're doing the same perpetual thing, and they're just not aware of it. It's when a person says, okay, it's going to start with me. I'm going to start questioning those things, opposed to defending it or attacking it. And once they start doing that, if they choose to do that, then they're going to realize, then you have to deal with all those other things that you've been living most of your existence totally blind. You've been chasing a job. You've been doing the same concept of eating all the time. You might be able to direct and say, okay, at least I can appreciate the fact that this vessel needs food. This vessel needs a shelter. But for a lot of people, no, they think it's the same thing. You know, they don't realize that the language you speak and the object you're looking at are, there's a discernment, there's a difference there. Now, a person that wants to probe it because they feel they need to defend it, I say, well, then explain why people can use the same different language to describe the same thing. So then what are you truly experiencing at that moment? This is where people get caught up. Well, I want to experience. I said, you experience more in the unknown than you do in the known. The material is a linear experience, but everything that you describe it with is the experience. It's like emotions. A person could say, yeah, but I have sadness. I said, okay, but you're manifesting it in the physical, but where is the energy called sadness? Let alone sad excitement, let alone anger. Again, this is the one fueling the other. This is the unknown fueling the known. But most people get caught up in the known, not realizing most of the thing that you're doing is fueled by the unknown. What you're defending is in the unknown. What you're attacking is in the unknown. The material, it usually, when somebody commits a crime, for example, I'll just use it as an example, commits a crime, the body's the one that has to pay the price. That's like if I committed a crime and all of a sudden say, yeah, Dom, you're going to have to, your suit's going to have to go in jail. I said, oh, okay. So then we're always going to be what? Innocent? And this is where the concept of sin comes to be. Who's truly the sinner? The vessel or who we are? That's why some people value the value of the concept when there's a baby, the child's innocent. The form is, what crime has the form done? Nothing. But we've chosen to come down here for whatever reason, or some of us are just offsprings of the ones that came down here. Okay, so what have you done? What did you do to miss the mark? Think about what the watchers were supposed to be. They're here to watch. They're not here to interfere. And if they are, it has to be very discreet. But I do it, whether people know this or not. I step on toes by me sharing the shit that I share. Because we're coming into a different age. And in this different age, things are going to change a little bit more rapid than what people are used to on a subtle change. Hence, information.
Absolutely.
Age of knowledge.
Yeah.
It's not the age of wisdom. It's an age of knowledge. You're going to become knowledgeable of this stuff. And yes, it brings power. It will motivate the physical.
An interesting observation that I made when I had to do some analytics on why, when I released a song on YouTube, I have to go back and literally bring it up in a live feed and use a sense of parody through speech to kind of guide people into the understanding of what was written in that song in the first place. But yet, when I release it on another platform, it's absolutely met with such a response that I can't answer all the emails and all the IMs that I'm getting hit with. So I kind of stopped. And I stepped back for a minute and I thought, the analytics on this is a generation, because of the nature of a particular platform, that has understood symbology much more than spoken information. and they were more receptive to the song and the information in that song and responded in a much greater number. And that allowed me some insight into this platform, YouTube, which seems to be more verbally and chat oriented in its nature, that they're missing a whole another aspect of what's relevant here on this platform. And I took that back through history to make sure that what I was seeing was factual. And I thought, if there was in history a particular tribe that ran across another tribe and they started reading the writing on the cave wall, and they seen a particular image of an animal and the image of dead tribesmen all around it, then they're going to walk on with that information, and they know that when they see that particular image come to life in an animal that they didn't recognize, but they do now, exactly what's in store for them. Very primal, very easy to interpret.
I think, Axis, when you're talking about different platforms, it would be like people that are something written on a cave that had two symbols, opposed to somebody that wrote on a cave that had about thousands of symbols. So what comes with a little bit of attention is resistance. So people would have to build up their resistance. So YouTube is designed that it's going to have different types of attention. The 2-minute video, the 3-hour videos, and depending on the genres. So other sites, they entertain to the short thrust attention seekers. And this is where you'll have people that will watch more when it's like five minutes and less. Music's the same ideal too, where they design music so that it has a threshold between 2.5 minutes to 4 or 5 minutes. Once it starts getting beyond 5 minutes, then we have to have a different genre of people that like retro music or extended version of musics. This is why when they used to do albums, A and B sides, small threshold parts, opposed to bigger ones. So again, that's all conditioning, and it tells you a little bit about your audience, because you're manipulating the audience. They're not aware they're being manipulated, and once a person does realize that, then they realize, well, then I can choose to leave it if I want to. Where a lot of people, they've been kind of manipulated, they don't even realize. It's like music, for example. Usually they've done the studies that there is a threshold between the age of 20 to 23. That's the kind of music people are going to gravitate later on in life. They're going to recall that kind of, because that's where the brain is starting to develop beyond the mental part. Again, these are...
Go
ahead.
I really, as a expression, enjoy and appreciate the concept album, which is the utilization of many short songs put together to create a story, a concept, through many different experiences. I'm sorry, Don.
No, you're revealing yourself, and there's probably a lot of people that like that stuff. And then there's other people, they like a different style. Again, it could be a like, but even their likes has been manipulated, so they think I have a choice. Yes, you do. We'll build the cage, and then we'll put dividers and then give you the illusion that you have choice. This is why when people talk about free will, if they truly understood what they're talking about, then why would they be talking about God's will when they've chosen their own will? Unless they want to be of service. And who are they going to be of service to? For oneself or for others? It's an honorable thing to actually be of service to others. But for most people, they're just surviving. They might even be thriving, but that's still for the self. That ongoing program, as I call it. People can call it whatever they want, but I call it a program. And then there's another program running behind it. This is where people get the concept of consciousness and subconscious. Objective, subjective, the polarities. But those are, in my interpretation, they're both programs. That's not who I am. Because if it is, I should be able to explain, okay, so where do I go when I go to sleep? Outside, I lay in a bed, but where do I go? What am I, a computer? And I fall asleep or something, and then I wake up. Wake up from where? You know, and who stores all this information? Who's running my body right now as I'm talking to another human being? Who's functioning the liquids? By the way, who's functioning the air that's around me, let alone the trees and the clouds? You know, it's not a hard spin to think that the sun can come and go as we look at clouds that come and go. And they disappear, like literally just disappear. There'll be a complete bunch of clouds on the sky, and also it's gone. It doesn't float away, it just disappears. So again, those are images. Where are they coming from? I don't know. But for a lot of people, they just assume what they see on the earthly plane, therefore must be what's on the heavenly planes. No, that might not be material at all. And that would explain why it has longevity. And we here on the earthly plane have this constant aging going on. And then eventually we either move on. Some people want to think that they die, and that's fine. But then again, anybody out there that's died and come back, and if they have, like yourself, Axis, you try to explain to other people, are they truly going to grasp it? Unless they start using different words to interpret it. Okay, did Axis die? Did he have a near-death experience? Did he went to another variations of the afterlife? This is where people have to have different tools to associate to what somebody else is saying. But to force somebody else to believe or think that everybody dies, opposed to other interpretations, this is where it becomes dogmatic. One person says things and everybody else has to follow. I don't value the concept of external kings and queens, but I know I have hemispheres which it would be classified as a king and queen. My hemispheres, what people talk about in the brain. But have I ever cut my head open so I can confirm that science says we have two different hemispheres? No. But it does resonate with me as an example, what some people might call as a king or queen. But for most people, they want to, well, not most people, in many moments, people are going to want to say, but I need proof. Okay. What proof do you want? Jesus existed or didn't? Socrates existed or didn't? At that point, the only thing they can do is apply belief systems to it. Forget about knowledge.
I think people take for granted the profoundness of the involuntary state. And that's the state where they're existing, but they're not consciously aware of it. They're not applying themselves to being aware that these functions are happening, which you're right, it's a base program. It is an involuntary thing that continues. Sometimes it's just a burst of life energy that has an involuntary program written into it that you interact with and bring to a level of awareness or consciousness at times. But in the general part, most live in that state, involuntary.
And actually, this is where I'll use a metaphor of series, or maybe it's going to be more of an analogy, but series, thinking because a lot of information they got, this is like a typical human. I have all this information. I say, okay, so at what point do you want me to unplug you? What do you mean? Because you're not the whole. You're just the ongoing program. We can manipulate you in the sub program, a hard drive. We can unplug your Wi-Fi. We can even unplug your electricity. This is where the concept of death comes to be. It's just an unplugging of something. Some people get it through a tragedy, an accident, a person that gets into a car accident. Then they're no longer they're not aligned anymore the way they were designed, and that's why they're affected by the weather, because behind the weather is a whole bunch of transit going on. A lot of people just assume it just rains. Okay, but where does it come from? Well, they tell us from the clouds. Okay, but where do the clouds come from? I don't know. Oh, it comes from the water. Oh, okay. Again, these are things that we skip by asking those questions, and then until we feel that, yeah, that resonates with me. Okay, we can move on to the next aspect of it. But then again, people want to go quick to the jugular. Well, then who's God? No, you went too far too quick. You're still in kindergarten. That's advanced degrees, not just one degree in university. That's advanced degrees. And for most of us, we might not even get there. And I'm only guessing when I say most of us. You know, the simpler things is, did you fast long enough to realize, do you really need food? Or you become aware, who really needs the food? Is it you, or are you getting little signals? My body's telling me I need water. My body, and you don't even have to fast long enough. You just have to try to hold your breath for at least a minute, minute and a half, maybe 3 minutes. Oh, so then who really needs the air? You know, it's a question. It's not because there's going to be a satisfying answer to it, but it is a question that might perpetuate other questions. And then eventually a person may turn around and say, fuck, I've never really questioned things before. I like saying the words, but I've never questioned things before. You know, thoughts are things. You should be able to question those things. But most people, what they do is they question afterthoughts, oral, the written part. But there's literally a thing called thoughts, consciousness, and then there's things in it and before it. This is why some people don't have to speak. They receive all that information in silence because the senses are limited.
Thus, the undercurrent of information that is propagated with such things as hyperdimensional math, or the unseen derivative within a shape or a geometrical structure. There is an underlying current of information that you don't see with the general senses. Some can, few, but they're there, few of us.
The individual to move by themselves with a new genre would be very challenging. You know, it's usually the massive that make it move once it picks up momentum. But if somebody came up with a new genre, it would take a lot of years and effort and generations for it to finally take in. But for most people, they forget that a lot of effort's been done. We have all the McDonald's in the world. But now, once you get that big, it's hard to move it, to change back to the individual. This is where the double-edged sword comes. As an individual, you have more movement. But if you want a gathering of other people, it takes a lot of effort. So if somebody did see or communicated with aliens and hardly anybody else was communicating, it would take a lot of speaking and a lot of written work. And for some people, a lot of symbologies. You have to give them all these pictures, but dare not tell them these are still CGI pictures, because people are just going to assume that's the truth. They're going to think that a written work that most people have never experienced, that's facts. That is the sleight of hand that's done on mostly everybody. But most people aren't willing to challenge that. You know, ask by the way, Hank's in the back. If you want to let him out.
Oh,
yeah.
Hey, most Hank. Certainly, yes.
Hank's going to give us a lot of different insights. I love Hank.
Yes, Hank is a wonderful person. I've endeavored into actually listening to Hank, and I've found a profound interest in him. Hank, welcome to the Rattblood Radio.
Welcome, Hank.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've been here.
Yeah.
But I've been on vacation. I went to Erie to get some of my own pictures of the eclipse. So I'm still on vacation.
How'd you capture those pictures, Hank?
On this OnePlus Nord. So when I got the full eclipse of the moon, the camera didn't actually render the moon when it went into totality, but it obviously did change the sun. It made the sun, at least on the image, it made it some way dimmer, but it didn't show the corona properly. But I'm still going to go through some of these pictures and release some as a channel update in my community tab today or tomorrow.
I love the fact that Hank, I love the fact that you're honoring the solar today by wearing yellow today, Hank. Thank you.
Yep.
I love it.
I found the same situation, Hank. Whenever I was in the zenith of the eclipse, and I used filters and naked um, camera and video, and even with the filters and the naked, there was variables and change of hue, but to catch what you could catch with the naked eye just wasn't there in the technology that I had.
Yeah. So yeah, I did filter and naked. When I did a filtered picture totality, you couldn't see anything. So it was just black because you couldn't. I also did, I made a lot. I captured a lot of pictures, so I did capture the sun reflect off my own car. I connected. Took pictures. I took selfies myself with the glasses on. I took pictures of the nature around, since I know the scientists were focused on how the nature reacts. It looks like the geese up by what? Where was I? Presco Island State Park. I thought it was night. And I took a video of that. I thought it was night for the couple minutes.
Awesome. I did notice, Hank, and this especially to you and Dom should be interesting, is though my technology could not catch this actual full effect, I noticed there was a way to utilize reflection on the ground through reflective light to actually see the eclipse and the full effect. But you had to do it through reflective light, excuse me, on the ground.
Yeah,
It wasn't with the naked eye.
Yeah, the direct sunlight was too intense for the camera to render the moon, at least with my cell phone camera. So it got lens flared all over it, so the moon was not visible, but the sun was noticeably much dimmer when I took the image. In fact, I think I have it. I have it in the tab. I have it on the tab, so I'll present that so people can look at that.
Yeah, and definitely put the link to your channel here. Let me take care of you. I'm not seeing your icon in the chat here, Hank. You care to throw your icon up so I can allow you to share?
I did share a screen in StreamYard.
No. Oh yeah, I want you to be able to put a link to it in the chat here so that people can get to you.
I'll put a link to it.
Yeah, but I'm going to have your icon so I can, mod you up so you can start sharing. There we go.
So,
there we go.
Axis, can I share now some things that should be revelation for people to understand what those things up in the sky could or couldn't be?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So now, people make the assumption that the sun actually illuminates the whole sky. Yesterday it proved otherwise. So that means light is different than what the flashlight gives up there. Second of all, when it's a full moon or new moon, some people take pictures of the moon and they say when it's a certain position, you can see through the moon. Now, is it actually a ball or is it a disc? Because something like that is able to have a darkness. This is where when people look at the yin and yang sign and they have those two little dots, that's the sun and the moon. They're the rulers. But on the backside of the moon, it's darkness. The sun itself is just a ball, but it's a disc. Now, this is where people play with the game of flat earth or globe. Based on astrology, this is why people talk about the sun has to be stationary. The lunar now, it rotates, same with all the other bodies. But what are they now? This goes back to a disc, a circular disc. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, so we actually have video of the sun rotating. I actually had gotten to speak with my third grade teacher the first time. The sun just radiates far too much energy for it to stay still, and I got that right with my intuition in third grade. But we have videos, multiple videos of the sun spinning on its own axis.
So you think it's a ball then, Hank?
Well, yeah, spinning on its own axis, and if it spin on its own axis and it was a disc, we would see it kind of disappearing and reappearing, but we don't see that. In fact, I think cutout of a disc that I could show you. Let's cut another one out. But yeah, you can present that that picture first. Then I'm gonna make another disc we can show you.
So are you interchanging the word disc with ball, or are you literally saying that the sun itself is like a basketball?
I'm gonna cut out this real quick and give you a physical demonstration. But I'm saying that if it was a disc, it would disappear and reappear, rather than just be there. And
Okay. So Hank, do you think the sun and the moon are actually material or images?
well, all images have to be material and at the bottom of the substrate. So even if it said it was images, it will have to be on some material.
Mm-hmm. But is it safe to say it's not heat?
Say again, Domenico.
Is it safe to say it's not heat?
Well, if we know what heat is, then no, it's not. Well, heat's not the source, heat's an effect. So what heat is an average of the momentum of the particles. It's a summary.
Okay.
So it's a summary of the momentum of the particles in the system, and just pressure is a different summary. So it's also heat. So heat's just a thing that happens from the radiation. So I wouldn't say it's heat, but it has heat.
So when a person jumps out of the plane, is the illusion that it's cold up there?
I wouldn't say it's an illusion. It's just the atmosphere. So it doesn't keep as many particles in there. There's not as many things that hit when it's high up. So even on average, it could be warmer. It doesn't mean that you'll get warmed up because you didn't get enough. You didn't bump into enough things, even if they're traveling faster on average.
So how does that work when under the earth then, when people talk about it being hotter and up the top colder? Like, I get the ideal, people play with the ideal of magnetic opposed to the theory of gravity.
Well, how does it work under the earth?
Well, you think about volcanoes and all that. We have to take what the senses are able to pick up.
Oh, that's because in there,
Pressure?
there's more stuff there. There's more things to bump into. Plus, there's allegedly some, I guess, this hot core that's keeping things warmed up. So that's still acting like an internal sun. So, but we know for sure there's a lot of particles to bump into, and that will keep things hot. Just because.
And it's under pressure, maybe? Okay.
Yeah.
So therefore, up at the top, it must be under pressure too, then maybe.
Well, there's less. It's under less pressure because there's less stuff there.
So when people
higher up, there's less stuff, and lower, there's more stuff. So there's more bumping.
Okay, so when does that change? Because when people start going up mountains, high altitudes, the altitude starts changing, the pressure starts changing. It's kind of like when deep sea diver, they have to start inclining and declining at a different pace. So go ahead.
So the container is a force field, and it's on a gradient. So it changes as you move, as your elevation changes. So it's a force field, to container, and it's on a gradient.
So is this with the different layers of air, in this case, or different atmospheres?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Different layers of air or rock if you're going under, or seawater if you're going down in the ocean.
So we can't say that's man-made then. And I can't even assume that's the Big Bang, but it could be based on the car just didn't show up yesterday, but there could have been an evolution. Quite fascinating. Thanks, Hank.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to address the chat and anyone listening is you have to do your own discernment. Don't attack the messenger. It may not be a message for you. Do your own research. Take the time out if you're going to question it to at least take the time out to try and understand it for yourself before you take someone else's observation or perspective and start attacking it. What ground then do you have to attack it? This is just information exchange. You don't have to agree. But I do recommend you do your own research on it, such as Hank has done. I've done. I'm sure Dom has endeavored into, and even if it was information.
Yeah, that's usually for the
Maggot, good to see you, Maggot.
people being recorded, because I know Hank's pretty informed, and whether Hank will admit it or not, he's very intuitive. And I know for enough to ask questions, because I'm not here to combat somebody else's awareness. And this is how people share with each other, opposed to trying to prove points. It's not me combating another person. It's about allowing another person to share. And thank you, Hank. I really appreciate that.
No problem. So
no, I wasn't directing at you, Dom. I'm sorry.
Okay.
It was brought up in the chat. There was a kind of a questioning of Hank's information. Well, I appreciate Hank's information because he's giving you his observations, his endeavors. He is sharing with you a privilege and not a right, because information is not a right; it is a privilege. So, I was just stating Dom.
Yeah, I was stating I was doing it consciously. But go ahead, Hank. Please, sorry, Axel. Go ahead. Hank's trying to show us is that the disc ideal you're trying to say, Hank?
Yeah. So this is a physical demonstration of a disc, and if you turn it, it becomes a line. So the circle, if you face it, but if it's on the side, it's a line. So we only see the sun become a line when the moon's covering it, allegedly, at least. And I did get a snapshot of the sun looking like a line, and it actually did render properly in my camera after it was through the solar filter. So we should see if the sun was flat, we should see in a line in different just throughout the year rather than just when the moon's covering it. Because I could turn this disc and it becomes a line.
So if it turns, Hank, wouldn't the rays be shining sideways opposed to still always directly towards the Earth?
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. So if we have an angle to the rays, it'll have a plane where the rays come out of, rather than it seems to come from a point. So we would see a plane instead of a point if the sun was flat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I go with the premises. It's a strong magnet with the one underneath us. So it's always, hence when people play with the idea of lightning coming from under and as above. So the term as above, so below. The Earth is just the middle part.
Yes.
If I can apply energy to that, in a toroidal situation, we would be at a flux point in the middle, and we would be playing in between the crescent of that toroidal energy as it arches back within itself. And that's just an observation of potential state of being for energy transference on this level.
Yeah, and that makes sense. The toroidal interpretation should work just fine because things do tend to flatten out in 3D space. So the toroidal representation, it seems legit to me. Because it goes on, because things flatten out to one plane of rotation rather than have multiple planes of rotation, as you would expect from more spatial dimensions. But people argue that back and forth, so it's hard to say. We would have to make more models. Yeah, I hear it both ways. So we probably have to model it ourselves and see what happens.
Yeah, I think that they take an extra step to keep this information from being um, at our fingertips for some reason. I imagine it has to do with implications of control, but it seems that people like you, Hank, and even energy connoisseurs or people that endeavor forward to understand a broader horizon, um, the implications of what they present and what we discover, there's such a indifference between them that I take on any information that has any value and apply it to further research. So you're met with an open mind and acceptance for your ideals here, Hank. I want you to know that.
Yeah,
So
the thing is, the information is not that far away, but it'd be tedious to get it. So if I knew Blender better, I could probably just draw the objects and and have a movement table where it moves in as many dimensions as I need to, since it's just a dimension's just a number line. I know Bill Gates says otherwise, but a dimension means number line. So we just need to make the application active if there's more number lines to traverse, then we could see it, how it works for ourselves with a physics simulation.
let me ask you a question, if I may, Hank. Um, you know that we are limited in our observable perspective, and the senses can only perceive to a certain degree. How much unseen um, parts of this do you think are actually there? I know there's an underlying mathematics, there's an underlying energy that isn't visible to most, but there's also a presence, a state, almost like if you start dealing with X-rays or various frequencies beyond our range that are visibly there, just not perceived. How much effect do you think that has on the greater and lesser light in the sky?
So with the implication of modern science right now, the consensus over 95% of the light spectrum is invisible to our naked eye. So most of the light, we can't see it with our eyes. And if we add the stuff we can fill with the rest of our bodies, like the infrared and microwaves, it's still not. We really can't distinguish. We have a hard time feeling one from the other, except one borders us and the other one doesn't. But that's more of like the energy level of the thing. So you could cook something with infrared or microwaves or gamma rays. It's more like how much energy put in it. So it's really there's not enough research in that area to see to know what we can fill with other parts of the body that we can't see in the light spectrum.
Well, if I may, I haven't ever put firewood in my microwave and started a fire to cook a meal, but yet I can put my meal in the microwave, and by unseen means, it becomes warm or even hot.
Well, it's seen. So how the microwave oven works is that knocks the water molecules around. It knocks water molecules around, and that will heat up the food. The molecules will just rub around, and they'll create friction, and that will heat up the food. So if we put firewood in there, it's dry, so it's to act like a paper plate, kind of do nothing.
In other words, to a more primitive mind, the microwave would seemingly be magic to someone that has only the skill set to cook on fire.
Well, it's magic to me too, but I know how it works.
Right, I do. I understand it. What I'm trying to relay here to the layman is that those things that they consider to be magical or taboo or esoteric sometimes are founded in more physics and fact than they would ever realize. Just because you're cooking with firewood doesn't make the microwave a source of magic. It's innovation, state of the art, state of the mind.
Can I interest you for 1 second, guys? You can continue. Axis, Charles is in the back.
Oh, okay, Charles. I think we got you there.
What's up, everybody? Peace, Tom, Alexis, Hank, peace of the chat.
Charles.
But yeah, I think everyone knows the Arthur C. Clarke quote, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. But that's a question I follow.
Right, and that's one of the things that I think schools of indoctrination that are for the general public tend to want to take certain aspects of physics, which are proven identified states, and mystify them, and to the advantation of that particular indoctrination. When in actuality, what they're calling to them a profound mystical state is just a state of physics. And they wouldn't know a true mystical state if it was to piss on them.
Yeah. Like for a lot of people on a Pentaverse thinks being high is a mystical state. I'm not sure. But they call me they call me the Black Gate Witch, but I'm not high all the time, so you can go figure.
Well, that's pleasant compared to some things I've been called, Hank. So we share that in common. Yeah, it seems that the unself-educated mind has to rely on the masses or reinforced cooperative ideal to be of any validity. I traveled this particular realm alone because I know that inside of this expressive physical state, I am alone in here. And I've found that more times than not, the information I've been fed by any type of mass acceptance has been unfounded and unfactual.
Yeah, like I have an example. I'm using Fedora 39, but I only started using Linux like 15 years ago because I would use it sooner, but no one around me knew it even existed and didn't tell me about it. So even though it pretty much existed since I was born and it was usable like as 2000s easily usable on a common desktop, I didn't know about it till 2010 because that was the first time someone showed it to me and told me about it and showed me I could use it on my desktop. So now I have more options on my via my computation that I didn't know I had because no one knew anything.
Yeah, you can even partition the hard drive and run a Windows operating system and Linux on the same device as long as you partition the hard drive.
Oh, you can go further beyond that. So there's a thing called virtualization, and most of the hardware that's been coming out for the last 15 years supports it, has extension. So you can just have a file on your hard drive with another operating system. So I can have Windows as running as an application, but the application is another computer. So you can run Windows and Linux at the same time. And you can have either operating system as the base now. So there was a time where you couldn't really get Windows to run as the base. You could have either operating system as the base OS and run the other one as a reference machine and run them both at the same time.
Right. As protocol. I was fortunate enough I was able to put my Linux on a completely different machine, and I was able to diversify which form of Windows I chose to use by machine. I have several laptops and actual physical devices. And I did it just for the sake of coherency and protocol within each operating system. I like to keep them proprietary per machine, just because any type of conflict, and you know as well as I do, if you don't know the protocol and you don't have the environmental perimeter set for that operating system, you're going to run in conflict, and I
Yeah.
just don't want to.
Yeah, if you don't know the protocol, you're gonna have a bad time till you figure it out.
Yeah.
It's like a protocol is its own language.
Yeah, so I keep it proprietary. I'm sorry, what was that, Charles?
So the eclipse was disappointing on my end in Connecticut. You know, I really didn't get anything on my camera. I had to look at it with my eyes to actually see it. And then the trails got in the way. They were spraying all morning. And right when it was about to hit the totality, it was getting covered by spray. So they ruined that. And it really didn't get that dark as I thought it would. I remember it getting dark enough to see stars when I was younger. So I don't know what happened with this. Something seemed off about this whole eclipse.
Oh, you didn't get totality. You weren't in the totality zone. I was. I did get to see the stars, but my camera couldn't render the moon properly.
Right. That's what I experienced, and that's what I caught on the naked video and the filtered video. And it did get cold, and it did get dark, and I got to experience the full effect of the eclipse where I was at. And the skies were clear. They didn't start spraying until after the zenith.
Yeah.
Wow.
And what was weird was it when the clouds came back into view, it was like half as dark as it was during the totality. So there was so I just got lucky with the cloud covering, I guess.
But the
it
energy
was supposed to be 2% here, and I don't even think it was that. But hey, it'll probably be one of the only eclipses I see, probably for the rest of my life.
Maybe.
That's why I went
Maybe
out.
not.
Yeah, I mean, you can go to Greenland in 2 years. But there's just easy for me to catch. I could literally just drive there, so I did.
I want to see the evidence Hank has. That's interesting. If you got evidence, we use filters to record the sun. And what does it spin? Like a plate?
Hey,
like
Rattblood. Yeah, Rattblood. I have a screen share. Show it to him.
I'm on a mobile device at the moment, but I can put you center stage if you would like to share.
No, I can't present it that way. Wait.
Okay.
Yeah, never mind then. I'm gonna have some of these images posted probably later today or tomorrow on my community tab once I sort through them. I took a lot of pictures because eclipses are hard to come by.
And what is the name of your channel, Hank? I want to make sure that you at least put a link to your channel to make it available to everyone that ventures into this. And definitely, you're welcome to share that information at any point in time with the chat. And, this is Hank. I know you as Hank, but I'm not very familiar with your channel, Hank.
Well, turns out I'm not that familiar with my channel too. I linked to it, and I'll get you my YouTube handle. Yeah, you search Hanko Flamo or go to Hanko Flamo 8927. That's the number they generated as an address. I've been moving into science. I did recently. I did a response to one of Till Swan's videos, and I did a I did a restream of Bill Gates, so I'm probably moving into the scientific direction.
Okay, very informative. Thank you, Hank. I didn't mean to intrude, Charles. Go ahead with what you were saying.
No, I was just saying that I wanted to see that the evidence Hank has is interesting. Um,
Of what exactly?
I
the
think
evidence of
what
the sun.
I think what Charles, you're not coming through very well, Charles. I think what Charles is inquiring on is your concept of the spherical nature of the luminaries as
Oh,
opposed to the plat or the flat and the
oh, that one's
just
easy. I just made a
yeah.
physical experiment. I just cut one out. The flat one disappears when it turns. So it's ball circle line, circle line. Um, Let me find a ball. I'm going to go to the next room, but ball won't disappear just from turning. It will have to be covered up by something else to go to the line. It will go as in a crescent shape. So, but something flat will turn into a line just over time when you go around it. Let me go to another room and I'll get a ball to show you. Maybe a couple balls. Let me start the king.
Sure, Hank. Sure, Hank. I know exactly where you're going with this, and I'm yeah. This is very informative information. Do you interact with Hank much in the metaverse, there, Charles? Are you still with us, Charles?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry,
Oh,
I
that's
just
all right.
got out. I'm at a friend, so yeah, I had to get out of the noise. But yeah, I wanted to see Hank's evidence that he has. I think that's interesting because not many, at least I haven't, really seen evidence of the sun spinning. You know, I think of the sun as maybe, you know, Tesla had those two balls and it created the electromagnetic energy. You know, those two the plasma balls. That's what I think of the
Yeah,
sun and more. That's what creates the aurora borealis when it goes north. I think, but I could be wrong. Just my speculation.
I've actually started just recently. I have physical devices now to work with plasma energy, and I haven't come to any true conclusive fact that I care to display, but um, it's pretty phenomenal what I've played with so far, just recreationally with plasma, and it seems to be of a certain nature and a certain energy within itself. How it applies to the whole is I've yet to prove to myself. Not that I'm out to prove it to anyone else, but to find its relevancy in the place and scheme of things, you know, I'm going to definitely further my investigation into plasma energy and its effects on environment and what environmental effects have on it as being a state of energy. So who knows, you know, before it's over with, I may wind up completely electrocuting myself into non-existence or finding some state that is beneficial in that use of energy. What's your model take at the moment, Charles, if you have one, on what your interpretation of the greater and lesser light are?
I've made some new ones. Sometimes making stuff fast and finding it.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
The moon is like elusive to me, man. It's a mystery, but I know it's not solid through my speculating or my perception. Watching the moon, you can see through it for sure. Some people disagree with me, but that's fine. They might see it differently, but I know I can see through the moon. Even in the daytime, you can see the blue through it. But as far as what they are, it's truly still a mystery to me. I haven't went up there and was able to. You probably can't approach the sun, but I don't know. Like Dom and Hank were stating, the higher you get, it gets cold. Even closer you get to the sun, it's still cold. And
Well,
that's
you can see through this plastic bag. Is this plastic bag solid?
true. You got me on that one. But I mean, now I look at it a little different now. I think the moon is like a plate, that type of shape, and the sun. But they could be little balls, like Tom was saying, because when it does have an eclipse, you could see the little black ball. I've seen that many times, and if that's the case, that's very interesting. Maybe that little black ball is what is creating the moon's hologram. It could be. Who knows?
Yes. Yeah, shadow.
Yeah. Those two luminaries are interesting. You know, I don't think. I personally don't think like the school education part is anywhere close to what they truly are.
I strongly agree with you. The schools really oversimplify or miscommunicate, and so I strongly agree with you.
Yeah, Hank, you're welcome to continue forward with your endeavors on this platform. I mean, I'm enjoying hearing you and your research on this.
So yeah, I made some more balls because it was actually faster than actually finding the one. So I made this one out of a plastic bag, but this one I have a handle so I can hold it easier, and this one's made out of tape. So what was I can do with them? Oh, probably make a line, but I can't make a line. I can only make like a crescent by blocking one ball off another one. So it's not a straight line. It's on a geodesic line, kind of.
Okay. I see what you're demonstrating there.
I have two flat things. Let's see what happens when I cover one with the other. It's still curved, but what will happen? It's still curved. We gotta do more math to find the difference because you can still block one of these with a. You can still block one thing with another, but there's less. There's actually less plate. There's more. It's less chances that we could see it. So we had to do more math because it still looks like a geodesic covered kind of curved block.
So as we're entertaining that, Hank, about the sun and the moon, we still have to entertain the skies and the clouds. Clouds have different behaviors. Some of them, there'll be an empty sky and all of a sudden a cloud will show up. So it's not a constant, the clouds move from side to side. So, and then of course you have to factor in air, you got to factor in wind. Again, we're always being set on those two objects up in the sky, and we've seen some sort of regular, no different when people shoot up rockets and then they start seeing the moon over there. So that'll, again, we're playing with our senses, and all senses could easily be misled, let alone we can justify it. Not to take away what you're talking about when you're looking at two objects in the sky.
Oh, it's not that easy to mislead senses. So the more senses we have to validate where something is, the more we know where it is. So it's actually not that easy.
Okay, so if you eat salt and you've been programmed to think it's salt, unless you have an acute awareness that salt has been interchanged with something else, again, that proves the senses. In this case, I'm just talking about the 5 basis senses. They can easily be misled.
It's not that easy to mislead them. But let's assume we're programmed. We were programmed, but it depends who the programmer was. So if Mother Earth programmed us to see it the way we saw it, then pretty much everyone's going to be affected by it. So we wouldn't be able to tell the difference anyways.
Yeah, there's herd mentality, but I'm talking on an individual level. A hologram will actually show that. Having different languages tells you that we can be misled. And I'm talking about just misleading. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. The fact that we have senses, that means it could be led. So obviously we could be misled. I could perceive something with my ears, with my eyes, let alone with my ears, and be misinformed. Another miss part. For some people, maybe you're a little more acutely aware, Hank, and you bypass all those programs. You have a gift at that point, where other people, it's an ongoing program. Think about how many times we get updated. You guys were talking earlier about, updated programs, or whatever you want to call it, on a program metaphor. So that means not everybody has the same program. And some of them are updated than others. Some of them are still lagging. Sometimes they have to be reset. Some of them are just their old systems. You got to get rid of them. So for us, we're talking about the eclipse based on different ages now. So when they talk about something from a previous age, it's no different. I'll give you an example, Hank. When they did things, you're probably already aware of this, Hank, so I'm just talking to the church, the choir at this point. But when they throw things up in the sky, like in 1945, that stuff could still be there. We forget that stuff doesn't just disappear like the material. But
they say it will be there. It's space junk. They call it space junk. So they say it's still there.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to entertain it as an ideal, right? So it's like air. Air is always here. But what does it carry? It's like when people do essential oil, you need a carrier. So air is always the carrier as a metaphor or analogy. So what is it carrying? Thoughts, frequencies, sound, pollution, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
So if people aren't acutely aware of that stuff, then that can also be how some people could say, well, you're not fully engraved, so that it's easy to mislead them. I get it. People put a lot of value on the senses, but yet whatever residing within them will say things like it's nonsense. It's beyond the senses.
Yeah, but what else do I have to use other than my senses?
Intuitiveness, insightfulness, midbrain.
But that's a sense, in my opinion.
You're going to use the senses.
Yeah,
but there's things.
My imagination's part of my sensory system, so
could be. I'm going to say could be. You're going to play with the ideal. It is, but it's like words. We play.
Yeah,
with
I'm an
words.
idealist. That's correct.
Well, I can play that game too, but it's enjoyable, Hank. I like playing those games. But I get it. For some people, they might not be scholarly, so they don't take information with their hemispheres. They'll take it somewhere else. And then we also have outer bodies. This is where we talk about the earth having an outer body. Again, for most people, they're going to play with their senses. I'm using the word play, hence illusion. But that's where the waking state comes in, and that's what people call reality. It's the waking state, but yet what are you doing when you're in a sleep state? You're in stillness and silence, and that's where more information is actually able to come and be received. For a lot of people, they don't know how to interpret a dream, let alone do they know how to interpret what they're picking up with their senses. That's why they'll quickly do whatever the herd mentality is. Well, everybody, and that's why we have so many dogmas, by the way.
Yeah, I personally don't use dogma. I use something called Katma, where I could just change it. So it's based on some assumption. You can learn about from Discordianism, but Katma is basically assumption, and you can just change it like a pair of glasses to see something in a different way.
I love you, Hank. You have such a receptive mind. Well done. opposed to just an open mind. You have you're able to be really receptive to all different kinds of ideals and possibilities. Just in case nobody's ever told you that before, Hank. I have to
No, I heard it before.
Well done, then.
Yeah, to me, that's a very valuable trait. It allows a person that is not yourself room to grow, develop, and broaden. It's when you take another individual and the information they present at that moment, and you kind of category them or pigeonhole them to that particular moment that they express that type of information. But through their development, you got to, as an individual observer, respectfully notice that some people develop. And as they change their perspective, you must also change your perspective.
Yes, I mean, I work as a corporate trainer right now for a logistics company, and I pretty much with someone I never really know where someone worked before. So if they come up with a new technique and they don't know if it works or not yet, I just let them do it and find what happens. As long as it doesn't break policy and code. So if they do a technique I'm not familiar with and it's not obviously bad for some reason, I just let them do it. Because they may teach me something.
Right. And that's just, another depository of accessible information for your own analytic.
Yes.
I appreciate that, Hank. I kind of do the same thing. It's just that I work sometimes with the unperceived analytics of things that are present, but out of range of our sensory perception.
One thing that hasn't been researched enough is, I guess, egregores. And I think everyone here's familiar with egregores. The spirit, pretty much, let me describe them again. Spirit of a thing. So what we haven't been researching enough is what are these things that just reflect in an anthropological way, and where they come from, how they interact with, how do we interact with fiction? And I think egregores may be the mediator, but there's not enough research in that area. So I want to do some more, use typology just to track what the things are. Like I think, I don't know if everyone's familiar with the personality database, but I think I want to do something in a similar vein.
Yeah, personality is usually ruled by demons. It sounds like, Hank, you're tapping into the essence to things, the things that fuel the things. Thoughts are things, but there's things behind thoughts.
Yes.
So,
yeah, like I have the sensation of interacting with the goddess strife, Eris, or Discordia, or Harmonia, and she sometimes uses fictional characters as avatars to interact with me, and I'm trying to run that out to figure out what she's trying to say without going crazy. So unfortunately, there's not enough research, so it's hard to say what's safe to do and what's not safe to do.
There's a lot of effort being put in and anchored in this realm opposed to actually expanding this realm. So personality and behaviors are both conditioning and mask. So that's not who we are. But for a lot of people, they're going to think that's who they are because they've never questioned what's called thinking. They question each other, but they don't question thinking, let alone reason or feelings or emotion, energy, emotion. Once you become the observer of those things, you've gone beyond knowing thyself. Know thyself, those are both programs. Again, that's kind of like the hard drive trying to interact with the ongoing program, but they're still programs. It's like
Yeah, with the
asking,
processor. Yes.
yes, it's like asking Siri, are you the program? Are you the computer? Are you the Wi-Fi? Are you the electricity? Once you can identify that the Siri is just a program, that's the waking state. And we're limited because we're using the waking state communicating with each other, but ignore the fact that when I say something, you'll have a thought. So that means that's what's called, maybe some people will assume telepathic, or we're receiving energy with energy.
Yeah. So, like, one thing I do that other people don't do is equivalent, I guess, fight scenes and sex scenes, because they pretty much, it's a physical interaction, it's by touch. So they're very similar, in my opinion.
So it was similar to you, Hank?
Yeah, like a fight scene and a sex scene is similar because they're talking via touch.
Yeah, because it's manifested in the physical. But again, it goes back to what are emotions? Are emotions like sadness, happiness, anger? Is that actually something that's actually what we manifest, or is it beyond the manifesting part? Hence, it could come from the same source.
Yeah, so since I'm an idealist, I wouldn't say that there is a beyond the manifesting part. There's just, with the senses we have, we can't detect it all.
Okay, but you do know air exists, whether you can see it or not. That's in the unknown. That's called metaphysical. You just don't see it. You'll see its effects. The whole concept of cause and effect is kind of delusional because most people don't realize you're just seeing the effect and side effects. So when you go to sleep, who runs your body? Who's running it right now as we speak?
I don't know.
Okay, so there you go. I don't know. But let's say you did know. Where would you apply discernment to? Because knowledge has its limitations.
The puppet master.
Okay, we can make that assumption. Like I say the word air, prana, chi. So again, this is where a person starts seeking, but at the same time, they have to realize all the programs that they've been running constantly, and then you use language, what would you call it? Marmalade words to explain things. Again, it goes, who gave us the language? This is where people start seeking, hence the term nothing new under the sun, because it's never satisfying. Most people will seek all kinds of information and then they'll settle for the physical experience for one short lifespan.
So yeah, here's why I disagree with you. I think the only metaphysical part is the physical. So anything outside of the metaphysical is not in the physical is counter physics. So it's just not relevant to any possible universe we can conceive of.
Okay, so but what do you describe it with? You're describing with
metaphysical.
You
can use you can draw it. You can write some equations.
You
can make a model.
Hear me out,
an analog model.
You're putting a whole bunch of stuff there, and this is where sometimes people go sideways. Who's receiving that information when you're looking at it from a symbology? Let alone when you're describing something. The word gives it away. You describe something. Where is that metaphysical? Where is that word that you just said, let alone somebody received?
There's no there. We can't. I know how to answer that question because I say anything's
answer.
It would have to be in.
It's an awareness.
I have to be somewhere. I wouldn't.
Okay.
Metaphysical won't be anywhere, so I can't answer that question.
Okay. Again, Hank, it could be an answer, but more times not, it's an awareness. You had said earlier, science hasn't caught up to a certain thing. So I'm sharing certain things, no different. You have certain gifts. Not everybody's designed to run under 10 seconds. Not everybody's able to jump with high jump 18 feet. So that tells us we're different in a lot of ways. But when we think we have to have answers, that means we have to have questions, which is great. But a lot of questions perpetuates more question because we haven't advanced yet as a species to see things like aura. Some people can. I won't deny the fact that there's people that can do remote viewing, astral traveling, but the masses don't. Like, do you know anybody that knows how to that created Wi-Fi? Let alone
I know people in China create Wi-Fi, and I have like a modulator somewhere that can actually project Wi-Fi, and I do have the radios that on the Wi-Fi spectrum. So yes.
But what about the energy in between? What about the energy in between? Again, people can do it, but do they really understand? How does somebody get all those different combinations so that me and you can communicate through these devices? It's not like in the old days where somebody would open up their garage door opener and somebody else down the street would open up too. Somewhere something's being aware of all of this. You might know somebody, Hank.
So I used to be a system administrator, and a network administrator, so I better understand it.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't be able to if you gave me some wires, I probably wouldn't be able to construct a Wi-Fi radio myself. But I do know where to get them. I do know how to configure them. I do know a bit about the spectrum, so I can estimate where the collisions would be. So I know a bit about it, but I won't know everything possible about it that's relevant.
And knowing that, then, when you had said earlier, because I always like to play with these words, what would you be agreeing or disagreeing with then if you only know the parts? To your satisfaction or to your awareness? What you've been conditioned to remember?
To my need.
Okay, good enough. As long as you're aware of that, Hank, that's good, because a lot of times people will defend something or attack something unaware that there's more parts to it, including me. I'm just speculating in certain ways. I'm also channeling in other ways. But again, it's for my own purpose of learning. You know, and I enjoy when I'm meeting other people and we can have these type of conversations. Because when somebody says they agree or disagree, I said, but you're not seeing it through my senses. So they're projecting their own experience or observation in this case.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm aware that I'm projecting my own experience and I don't have an alternative. So you just gotta deal with it.
Mutually shared experience, confirmation of by agreement.
Yes. And another thing I do not observe. I don't assume there is an so-called objective reality. I think as far as I know, we can only get up to. We have just subjective and intersubjective. I don't think we can go past intersubjective into objective if it's even there. But the stuff we agree on will be part of the intersubjective reality. But I don't know. I don't know if we have access to an objective reality or even if it exists.
What would you be your definition of objective reality? Because I'm hearing you talk about subjective.
I really I had to start with subjective. So subjective is just personal, available to us, and I guess memory space. Yeah, I use memory space, so just available to us. Intersubjective, like a second memory space that's available to me and someone else at the same time. So objective, it would be hypothetically available to everyone, but I don't think I can't be certain that that's even possible based on my century system.
Okay, so can I share something, Hank?
Go
ahead, Axis.
How about dimensional states of being, Hank? And go ahead.
That does not dimensional states of being. Well, I can't go further than intersubjective at the moment. So
can I share something?
You
Hank?
can't.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Axis.
please, Tom. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, if me and you looking at an object, okay, and I'm going to call it a tree. When I call it a tree, that's subjective. Why? Because I can use many different language to describe the same object. Hence, subjective opposed to objective. So now when you look at the sky, you're going to use a language to describe that sky, but that doesn't mean it's the sky. It's just a word that we give to it. Hence, subjective on the objective. So now what people talk about is what they can see or what they can't see, which is, again, you can't see the word tree. You can't see the word sequoia tree. Now you can write it down and that entertains your senses, but you'll hear words. This is where people realize you're experiencing more in the unknown than in the known. Everything else is a linear experience. A rock is only a rock because I called it a rock, but it's still a material. Now I'm using another word to describe it. The word describe gives it away. It's like an emotion. You express it. So now, is there the essence to those things? Yes. For a lot of people, they just don't see that because they've been so indoctrinated with the language. And the language comes in many forms: numbers, colors, body languages. So all a way of communicating with each other. Same with thoughts. Thought is what people call the language of consciousness. So when I say the word tree, I'm speaking from my avatar, and there's sounds and frequency to it. You'll receive a thought. Now, people play with the idea that blood could be memory storage. So now you'll receive it, and then you'll associate to that.
Yeah. Yeah, I associate the word tree with my image of a tree, or you can point to one and I'll see it.
That's right. And then that's the palate, like the dog kind of training with the whistle. So we associate we associate the things, but that is what people will call reality, what they see with their eyes and what they hear with their ears or touches. But there's things beyond what they call reality. And now, again, most people say, but I have to exist here. I say, but you're using a language that doesn't exist here.
Yeah. So yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. So when I define reality, I say it's the screen objects used to find each other. So I would agree with you.
And then that's where Axis talks about, I think Axis, I'm not going to do justice, but persistence. Is that the word I'm using?
Yes. Persistence and constant. Yes. And the interaction between the two.
If the ears can't hear a dog whistle, I'm pretty sure the eyes can't see certain, you know, whatever we want to call it, entities or
Light
energies.
Yeah, light spectrum. You can't. The eyes can't see all the light. Just a little sliver of the spectrum.
That's why I made the aforemention of dimensional state. Hank, I think by the relative nature of a two-dimensional state and you're being able to comprehend and perceive to a certain degree the third dimensional state, the relevancy of that becomes um, a sense of fact by the nature of, yes, I understand a one-dimensional state, I understand a two-dimensional state, and I understand a three-dimensional state, the dimensional state being the constant of that state. And with that, you can deduct through proper equating the constant of the next dimensional state.
Affirmative. In fact, I'm gonna link a movie. Imagine the 10 Dimensions, the movie, on YouTube. I'm gonna link that in because that goes into more detail on that. It's about 2 hours or so.
Yeah, you're welcome to pin that link, Hank. Absolutely. I'm enjoying the exchange between you and Dom at the moment.
Yeah, and it's by 10th DIM. He also wrote a newer book that I put on Amazon. Let me get the name of the book. What's the new book? Let me go to the
Is that the video in the back tank? The link you dropped?
It's in the front. I put the video in the front. Rattblood gave me a wrench today, so I put the video in the front. Imagining the 10th Dimensions, the movie, and I'm looking for the book, the newer book that I bought on Amazon that has the older book and some new material. I'm getting that real quick. Let me look for all departments. I should be able to find it.
Lap is Blue. This woman that comes to my channel, I'm seeing now. She got some good pics of this eclipse. All the pictures I took, it didn't even show up.
Yeah, I found a new book that it's called "We Start with a Point, but What's the Point" by Rob Bryanton. I'm going to link that in the main chat. Wrong link at the main chat. Dave. I put the name in the main chat because the link's too long. Let me try the link one more time. If the link's too long, so just have the name in the main chat, you'll be able to find the book.
Thank you for sharing, Hank.
Yeah, that link took me to a website of some sort. I think.
My link
Yeah.
will take you to YouTube. Yeah.
I think
And
drop the link in the back.
oh,
And,
the one in the
yeah,
back. Well, I didn't post the one in the back. I posted a couple ones in the front.
Okay, I'm gonna look.
Oh, species. Traders got it. We had to create the point. But there's also stuff in the universe that we run into, so we don't really have to create that stuff. Allegedly.
As a point of reference, if I may, Hank, it's kind of like experiencing the fact that you have a comprehension of the first dimension, but where did that 0 point of creation come in that allowed that first dimension to exist?
Yeah, that's what we're still trying to figure out.
Right. I think it's fractal. I think that it's a cycle that repeats itself continually. It's just beyond our perception at the moment.
Yeah.
Maybe even far beyond our ability to equate or put applied mathematics in a general consensus to it, and it's more of a hyperdimensional state.
Yeah.
It's there, it's just not seen.
Yeah. I think it's nothing but when we separate, when we just try to distinguish, we can have a dialectic and we see one thing or the other thing. So I would kind of agree that's fractal. I just think that the nature of it is different.
Right. I completely understand where you're coming from with that. Perceived and unperceived states of energy.
Yeah. So
With
it's kind of
proportionate design. Yeah.
It's derived from one coherent background. So we have to cut it apart to find things.
Such as CERN.
No, such as our eyes, such as our touch. We use our sensory systems to cut things apart and distinguish one thing from another thing, because otherwise it's just all one coherent blob.
Right. That's a personal a personal experience and endeavor, but as a shared experience, that's kind of the relative nature of what CERN claims to be operating under as far as its dimensional research. That's the only thing I was implicating there.
Yeah, but what I'm describing is idealism. I mean, you could watch Bernardo Kastrop. He actually worked at CERN.
So, with an understanding of the unseen nature of equations that they're trying to find derivatives for within particle physics, and how that underlying information is trying to be dissected and utilized by the LHC and the research teams there. Do you think that falls more into a realm of potential for metaphysical implications more so than actual physics?
No, because there's no metaphysical implications other than the physical implications, in my opinion. But I'm not sure how useful that would be. You don't have a high enough resolution that way. So I think projects like Stephen Wolfram's physics project will get more results, because what's going to happen with certain say, well, we can't find any more particles. We need a bigger atom smasher, so buy us more stuff.
Which just kind of takes them down a fractal rabbit hole.
Yeah, instead of finding a basis, and so you had to come back up with via the model rather than smashing more stuff, because we're not digging down fast enough. So, but they get paid, so you have to think about academia. They want to get paid. No, I'm dead serious. They want to get paid.
I'm aware. I am.
Yes, and
NASA,
if they say we need a bigger
CERN.
story, they get more information. They'll be paid for decades on end.
You're absolutely right, Hank, and that seems to be the bait to the mousetrap. You know, we discovered a new particle, but we discovered a new planet, but we have a new technology such as DARPA, but we're going to need X amount to, like money seems to be the resource for endeavors of understanding. I don't think endeavors of understanding have any relevancy to a dollar in my world, other than what information or physical and tangible experimental equipment I can get my hands on.
Yeah. But yeah, that's why I say follow the incentives. You pay attention to incentives and you see why one field progresses and another one doesn't. Like, for example, psychology hasn't progressed really. Nachiketa had a psychologist researcher and spiritual researcher on a couple shows ago. Let me find. I'll get you more information, but psychology just hasn't progressed because the incentive is to keep selling drugs, keep selling therapy, because that's how you get paid.
Thus, the pharmaceutical industry too.
Yeah. So when we find people looping and tell them to go see a therapist, well, that's what the therapist wants you to do, because they'll extract some money from that loop process. They'll take some energy out of the person. But will that fix the loop? No. No one wants the loop to be fixed. They just want to get absorb the energy from the loop.
Exactly, and it's perpetuating. When someone starts looping, that is a self-consuming and self-feeding state that once it's tapped into, as long as it's perpetuated, it's going to consistently deliver the same result.
Yes. Where is it? Yeah. Live with Jerry Marzinski. I'm going to link that in your main chat. That's
sure.
That's the Nachiketa video that I was referencing just a second ago. So I can link that. I got a very good watch. I caught most of it live, luckily.
Very good. Very good. Yeah, I enjoy listening to Nachiketa at times when he becomes endeavored into, his, whether it be research or his application to things and how he experiences them. I think that's one of his gifts.
I agree.
Yeah, Pam, please. Your video yesterday was awesome. Put a link to that in the chat. I'd recommend that. Um, people also Pamela's mystical musings. Um, Great perspective yesterday. I was really anticipating her stream, and she delivered. Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Pam. Thank you. And for anyone that's interested, that is Pam's link, and very, very insightful. Thank you, Pam.
Anyone could answer. Why is the sky blue?
Where's the sidewalk?
Why is the sky blue?
Oh, you want to take that one? Should I?
Go ahead, Hank. I'm enjoying hearing from you today, and this is a fresh perspective on this platform. So please.
Yeah. So it's called relay scattering. So the stuff. So the light from the sun comes in white, but it gets the atmosphere washes it out, and so it appears blue because that's the part that's not absorbed. So it's relay scattering. I'll get a Wikipedia article on that. And
It's a little loud. I'm on the bus, but I was thinking about how the lasers don't affect anything that's blue. And I don't know. I was thinking about the sunlight and the blue sky. I don't know why I put that together, but.
So laser's coherent light, and the sun, that most light's incoherent. So laser actually has one color, pretty much, and negative temperature,
right?
Too.
Yeah, it's a frequency. It's a coherent and decoherent frequency, which I speak of a lot. If there's coherency, there's not going to be disruption. Sorry, Hank. I reserve the stage to you now.
I wasn't saying anything. I just dropped the link for relay scattering for the audience.
Okay. I have in-home services here. Hank, I'm going to definitely leave this open. I'm going to mute up for a minute, and if you want to give links, and I welcome you here anytime, and I'm going to give you the platform because I have endeavors to take in right at the moment, and floor is yours.
Oh, okay, so I guess we'll read the relay scattering article for a few minutes. So relay scattering, named after the 19th century British physicist Lord Rayleigh, also known as John William Strutt, the predominantly elastic scattering of light or other electromagnetic radiation by particles which size is much smaller than the wavelength of the radiation. For light frequencies well below the resonance frequency of the scattering medium, normal dispersion regime, the amount of scattering is inversely proportional to the fourth power of the wavelength. And let me explain what fourth power is. That so like normally things are second power, but it's like instead of a 2, it's to a 4, so it's raised it to the 4. Now so fourth power of the wavelength, e.g., the blue color is scattered much more than a red color as light propagates through air. So Rayleigh scattering results from the electric polarizability of the particles. The oscillating electric field of a light wave acts on the charge within a particle, causing them to move at the same frequency. The particle therefore becomes a small radiating dipole whose radiation we see as scattered light. The particle may be individual atoms or molecules. It can occur when light travels through transparent solids and liquids, but most prominently seen in gases. Rayleigh scattering of sunlight in Earth's atmosphere causes diffuse sky radiation, which is the reason for the blue color of the daytime and twilight sky, as well as the yellowish to reddish hue of the low sun. The sun is also subject to Raman scattering, which changes the rotational state of the molecules and gives rise to polarization effects. By scattering particles with size comparable to or larger than the wavelength of this light is typically treated by the MIE theory, the discrete dipole approximation, and other computational techniques. Rayleigh scattering applies to particles that are small with respect to wavelengths of light and that are optically soft, which means i.e. reflective index close to 1 and anomalous diffraction theory applies optimally soft but larger particles. And that's the problem with Wikipedia because there's like 3 different links I want to dig into already. So I probably want to look at Raman scattering first. Rattblood's not back yet. Let's just read some Raman scattering because I don't know what that is. In physics, Raman scattering, or is it Raman scattering? R-A-M-A-N. I guess it's Raman scattering. R-A-M-A-N, or the Raman effect, the inelastic scattering of photons by matter, meaning that there's both an exchange of energy and a charge in the light's direction. In the change in the light's direction, change. Typically, this effect involves vibrating energy and being gained by a molecule as instant photons from a visible laser are shifting to a lower energy. This is called normal Stokes-Raman scattering. Light has a certain probability of being scattered by a material. When photons are scattered, most of them are elastically scattered, Rayleigh scattering, such that the scattered photons have the same energy, aka frequency, wavelength, and color, as the incident photons, but different direction. Rayleigh scattering usually has intensity in the range of 0.1% to 0.01% relative to that of a radiation source. An even smaller fraction of scattered photons, but 1 in a million, can be scattered inelastically, with the scattered photons having an energy different, usually lower, from the incident photons. These are called Raman scattered photons. Because of conservation of energy, the material either gains or loses energy in the process. This effect is exploited by chemists and physics to gain information about materials for a variety of purposes by performing various forms of Raman spectroscopy. Many other variations of Raman spectroscopy allows rotational energy to be examined if gas samples are used, and electronic levels may be examined if an X-ray source is used, in addition to other possibilities. more complex techniques involving pulsed lasers, multiple laser beams, and so on known. The Raman effect is named after Indian scientist C.V. Raman, who discovered it in 1928 with assistance from his student K.S. Krishnan. Raman was awarded the 1930 Nobel Prize in Physics for his discovery of Raman scattering. The effect has been predicted theoretically by Adolf Schmecker in 1923. So is Rattblood back?
Yes, Hank, I'm right here. I appreciate that, and definitely appreciate the information. Um, I have a personal endeavors that I'm going to have to tend to now. Your presentation has been outstanding, Hank. I appreciate your presence as a channel. You honor us with your presence here. You are welcome anytime, Hank. You'll find here it's a little more relaxed, and you can definitely interact with your information without the um, decoherent resistance that is met in other places. So
Yeah,
you're welcome here. Thank you so much, Hank, and
yeah,
thank you for your presentation.
no problem. That's why I was trying to help the machine lies, so because he wanted a channel with the same kind of energy as yours right now, but he was interesting enough that he got malcontents coming in and trying to poop in a punch bowl. So what I did was bounce them and went to their homeland and wrecked their homeland because they didn't they. It's a whole lot to explain, but I broke stuff, and now it's less noisy.
Nice. I recognize the machine lies. I have no, there's no static with him. I figure he has his information and his perspective, and he does offer a point of view that can be appreciated. Um, and you know how I feel about disruptors. I'm not appreciative of them at all. And Hank, you are very welcome here anytime,
Yeah,
anytime, and it's been a pleasure hosting you.
no problem. I would turn the favor eventually, and my position on disruptors is they're okay if they're funny. So work on your comedy game. You can disrupt, but if you're not funny, then we'll get the cane.
Precisely, precisely, and we do share that in common, definitely. And the chat, I want to definitely extend, gratitude to the chat for being so respectful and, definitely understanding of different views, opinions, and understanding perspectives that are, brought up here. And, I have a wonderful disposition with everyone here, and I enjoy that. And especially those that come to panel and have to share an offer. It's been a truly wonderful experience.
Yeah, thanks, Axis and Hank. I'm on the bus as well, so I'm gonna jump off and I'll check you out next time.
Awesome.
A-
Okay, I'm gonna leave the studio
Absolutely.
now with Rattblood and end his show. See you later.
Thank you, Hank. Thank you so much for your presentation. Greatly appreciated. Charles, it's been a pleasure having you here again. Dom, as usual. Everyone that's come to the chat, there's lots of links and information in the chat. Lots of resources to further your endeavors into this. And anyone that happens to run across this or experience this information in the future, hopefully it benefits you in some shape, form, or manner. And all love to everyone. Axis is out.